Israel wants to be a superpower because the things that they want to do, that they'll have to do in order to achieve their biblical promises, in order to do all this other crazy stuff that I outlined in several videos about the Kabbalah and about the Talmud and about all these things, they're gonna have to do a lot of really heinous shit. Folks, welcome back to The Narrative with me, your host, Will Sexton, the host with the most and the most chevrot. Folks, big news out of X today involving some of our favorite figures and some of our least favorite figures. Speaking, of course, about this clip that went around, very controversial clip of one, Yishai Fleisher, the translator for Itamar Ben-Gvir, very important Israeli minister who I'm sure you all know. Yishai Fleisher is an advocate. Basically, he's paid by think tanks and donors or whatever to go around and talk about how much he loves Israel. He is an Orthodox Jew, much like Ben-Gvir. Ben-Gvir known for his high level of religiosity, and Yishai doesn't shy away from that at all. He goes around largely making clips about his religious beliefs, speaking about the religiosity of Israel, and this clip is no different. I've said it before, and so have many, that, when someone's telling you exactly who they are, you probably should listen. Let's take a look at the clip first, and then you can decide for yourself what's actually being said here.
Iran, and once they do, Israel's going to become a very rich country.
I love this guy. We're gonna topple Syria and Iran. True. Control Gaza and the West Bank, Judea and Samaria. You're right. Absolutely. I can't disagree with that. Good.
They're going to have the sovereign wealth funds of Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Qatar, pouring all their oil money into Israel.
This is sounding great. This guy's great. Okay. I don't know about this control of media business. That sounds like classic anti-Semitism, but this vision of a big, powerful Israel and the Arabs in line with that, I like that a lot. I like the sound of that. That you're making me want to win all these wars even more.
Israel's going to get all this money from the trade that goes through the Rimland.
You're right, bro. You're right. It looks like the Lord made us a nation that dwells alone morally, but in terms of human history, we're at the heart of the crossroads of civilizations. And you're absolutely right. We're going to benefit through that. That's right. That's what God's plan is.
All the trade from India to Europe, China to Europe, all the trade that goes through the Suez, the Persian Gulf, all the trade that goes overland through the Middle East, they're going to collect a toll on all that.
Sounds nice. Where's your proof that that's a bad thing? Have you read the Bible, or are you too Catholic for the Bible? What's the deal? Okay, I mean, I love your assessment. I love it. It's fabulous. It's good. It's good for the world. You're making me happy. You're making this settler you're making my day, man. You're making my holiday coming up. But where's but you're saying all this stuff in some kind of conclusory language that this is a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. It's God's plan. It's historical plan. And Israel has every right to sit in the crossroads and extend its defense to the Arab countries and to this region. You're right. From the Indian Sea to the Persian Gulf to the Red Sea, the Gulf of Aqaba and the Gulf of Suez and the Mediterranean. You're right. We're going to have a lot of power and control of that, and it's going to be good for the world.
Oh, God. I mean, talk about sniveling and just, so now that we've sat through that, I think you can see why this clip is going around. And many prominent voices came to speak out about the clip, not only just Nick Fuentes in rebuttal, but figures such as my beloved, my dear beloved, one Anna Kasparian. Oh, Anna, come home. I miss you. Now, Anna Kasparian writes on Twitter, when people tell you who they are, believe them. Making a great point and showcasing the severity of the statements made by Yishai Fleisher. But I don't see people commenting just yet on the importance of what Yishai Fleisher is speaking about, because what Yishai Fleisher is speaking about is something that I imagine many of you are familiar with. This is the concept of a greater Israel. Now, what does that actually mean? All the language that he uses here directly reflects Kabbalistic language, the language of Orthodox Jews like himself. Now, what we need to understand is that that is a language that is deeply rooted within theology and within the religiosity of somebody like Yishai Fleisher. This is direct religious speak. And sure, we can gather that from him saying the Bible, him talking about God, okay, but we need to look a little bit deeper to understand the concept of Greater Israel, to understand why he believes this is a good thing and why they're seemingly so brazen about their actions. You've heard people like Tucker Carlson speak more so about the religiosity of this war. You've seen people like Fuentes even go into the Kabbalah, but it really needs to be understood on a deeper level, the actual beliefs of the political actors that are driving war in the Middle East. And so to do that, we need to do what we always do here and dive a little bit deeper. But folks, before we do all that, be sure to like, subscribe, hit the bell to get notified whenever I make a new post, and check out the second channel. More on that later. Until then, we need to begin our story back where we begin a lot of these stories, with the Kabbalah. A couple key concepts need to be understood if we are going to understand the idea of Greater Israel and the modern political aims of the Likudniks, people like Yishai Fleisher, Orthodox religious Jews who are operating politically in the Israeli government. Now, before we begin to understand this, we need to understand some core concepts here. The first concept being the concept of the house of Jacob. Now, a lot of people don't realize this. The name Israel is a name, like of a guy. For those of you who are biblically literate out there, Israel is a man in the Bible. Jacob, who you might know a little bit more. Not Yakub, which I might make a video on at some point. I mean, hey, who doesn't love hearing about our origin story? No, the actual Jacob of the Bible is the patriarch of the Jewish people. Now, you have to understand, in Jewish belief, every single nation in the world, okay, all groups of people stem from one person, and every sort of like ethnicity and group and race is basically described as the descendants of that one person. This is why it's called Israel, is because they believe that Jacob is the patriarch of the 12 tribes of Israel. He's sort of the father to all of these people. Now, while we call it the state of Israel, obviously, in like the UN or whatever, the actual religious name for the country of Israel is Eretz Yisrael, the land of Israel. See, when they say Israel, they're not really referring to the land or the borders or the only place where, Dunham can sell tickets. They're referring to the body of people, the ethno-religion in total, that this is their concept of nationhood. It is directly tied to ethnicity and blood. You might have heard them say before, Yisrael Chai, like slogan that they like to use in comment sections or whatever. That literally means the people of Israel live, but let me note what people here means, okay? It doesn't mean people in the sense of like the people of New York, okay? It means people as in blood, as in like this is their tribe, this is their blood. It's an immutable characteristic that cannot be changed. All of this comes from the Old Testament of the Bible, wherein the promise to Abraham is described. The promise being Eretz Yisrael, the land of Israel. This is the land that is promised to Jacob and his descendants, which is first promised to Abraham. There are some important things to note here, however. If you know anything further about the Bible and sort of like Torah and Talmud study, that Abraham doesn't only have one descendant. He has many, many descendants, many of which are not what Jews consider Jews. Abraham obviously has Isaac, who goes on to have Jacob and Esau, and Jacob, that's Israel. So it's basically his grandson. And they believe that the inheritance of the land went from Abraham and then continued down and was inherited by Israel, by Jacob. This is kind of the basic biblical belief here, okay? Why am I explaining all of this? Now, you might have noticed in the clip, he gave a little quip about Catholicism. He said, oh, you're too Catholic for the Bible. Now, that might just seem like a throwaway comment. Okay, whatever. Maybe he's making a little quip. Maybe he's saying, oh, well, you should read your Bible more because if you did, you'd agree with me. Or maybe that means something a little bit deeper. See, a lot of this conversation stems around the relationship between Catholicism and Judaism as we understand them in modern terms. More specifically, the Jewish view of Catholicism and the European peoples at large, the historic followers of the Church of Catholicism. When I say Catholicism, I'm really kind of just referring to the concept of Christianity as it is to the Church. This, again, goes back into the Orthodox theology. Because remember how I said Abraham has Isaac, okay, who gets the promised land, okay? Then he has Jacob, who later becomes Israel, and that is where these people claim their claim on the land comes from. But he also has another son, a son named Esau. Jacob and Esau are brothers, and they play a very, very important role in the Bible. They are sworn enemies of one another in the Bible, despite the fact that they are, in fact, brothers. And if we know that their religious belief is that they are the descendants of Jacob, that everything that happened to Jacob happened to them collectively as a people, and that all the things promised to Jacob are now promised to them as a people, then that would imply Esau and his descendants would have a similar thing going on. No? Like they would believe that Esau would have a similar situation where Esau has descendants and Esau has people living on after him who represent him as a nation, right? I mean, this would just make sense with their theology, and that is exactly what they believe. But the question is, who the fuck is Esau? What people are Esau? Well, I'm not going to go through the whole lineage chain here. It's going to take us a long time. But basically, what you need to know, Esau becomes Europe. Esau becomes Rome. Rome is the inheritor of Esau. So while Jewish people are Israel, they're the descendants of Israel, and so by virtue of that, they kind of identify as that. Rome, and really, I guess more so the European peoples, that is Esau. Okay, that's interesting, kind of. I mean, what does that really matter? I mean, we're not Jewish here, so what does it matter? Okay, that's like a kind of a weird belief. Clearly, Europe didn't, spawn in the desert. But hey, I mean, let people have their beliefs, whatever. What does that matter for us? Well, we have to understand the relationship between Jacob and Esau, because like I said, they're brothers, but they are enemies. So why is that? Well, to understand that, we have to take a little dive into a book so commonly cited and yet so little read, that book being the Bible. Now, I'm not going to recount the entire book of Genesis to you. That's crazy. And I don't know, go watch Redeem Zoomer if you need something like that. Basically, the story of Jacob and Esau is pretty simple. Esau and Jacob are twins, but Esau is born first. So like he comes out first. And in their law, like most traditional law, the firstborn is the first claimant of inheritance. And so Esau is set to get the inheritance of Isaac, his father, an inheritance that came from Abraham. The Bible explains Esau as being very hardy, very creative, very strong. I mean, he's the archetypal warrior. He's the archetypal hunter, warrior. Really, like everything that when you think of the Roman Empire, when you think of like empire, strength, Europe, that's who Esau is. He's a warrior. Jacob, the second born, is a trickster. He's very, very smart. He's very, very cunning, but he's very conniving. And he's always trying to get the one up on people through his tricks, okay? Kind of the archetypal, like, trickster, philosopher, that type situation, if that makes sense. Not like a Loki, from like the Marvel movies or whatever, but you get what I mean. Now, the story of Jacob and Esau, pretty simple. The whole thing surrounds Jacob's, like, desire to steal Esau's inheritance, to steal Esau's birthright. That is basically the story, okay? So Esau, he's this hunter. He wants to be a leader. He wants to lead people, yada, yada, yada. Jacob is always trying to steal his birthright. And so eventually he manages to do so. He manages to trick Esau into going on a hunt. While he's gone, Jacob and his mom, who is helping him in this situation, they dress him up like Esau, go to the aging, like going blind Isaac and say, here's your son Esau. You're old and about to die. Give him his birthright. And so then, Isaac obliges, thinking he's talking to Esau, gives Jacob his birthright, and then Jacob absconds with the inheritance. And that's the story of Jacob and Esau, which, I mean, listen, I'm not going to say anything. I mean, if that's supposed to be the patriarch of these people, and we know, like, I'm not saying it. Like, I'm not saying it. I mean, we might be thinking it. I mean, come on. Like, okay, like if the patriarch of the people is supposed to be indicative of what the people are like Esau is a warrior, and then Rome would go on to be like a warrior society. You're telling me this patriarch is conniving, tricky? I'm just saying. Now you may be saying to yourself, okay, well, that doesn't make any sense because like an inheritance, I mean, that's like what? That's like land and stuff. How do you run away? Like, it doesn't make any sense. How would you run away with an inheritance? Well, you have to understand what the inheritance is in this situation. The inheritance is communion with God. This is the Kabbalistic interpretation, that the inheritance is communion with God, the chosenness of God. That includes, obviously, Eretz Yisrael, the land of Israel, literally, and this sort of blessing communion with God, the ability for one to commune with God and to live a blessed life and to sort of have a connection to God. This is the birthright that Jacob runs away with. And again, as we know, because Rome is eventually the descendant of Esau, we know that basically a large part of this theology surrounds the idea that Rome, so Esau, and Israel, Jacob, are in conflict with one another historically. They possess, because of this event, a blood feud, and that their descendants will always war because of this blood feud. And so forever on forward, their descendants are going to war, and this blood feud will exist. And no matter what, this is kind of the grand contention within humanity, is that Rome and Israel are always going to feud. And let me note, this plays an especially large role in Kabbalic understandings of the scripture, because Rome, might I add, would later go on to take over Judea, would later go on to take over these people and then occupy the region for hundreds of years. This is a time in which, obviously, arguably the most important event in Rabbinic Judaism would ever occur, that being the fall of the temple. And wouldn't you know it, it was Rome that destroyed the temple. And so the Kabbalic understanding is that Esau's kids, Rome, have a blood feud with Israel's kids, the Jewish people. Esau's kids go and destroy the temple that is literally supposed to be the in the world physical representation, and in some interpretations, actual physical manifestation site of the Jewish people's connection to their God. And thus, this is the second point in the blood feud. If the whole inheritance thing is the first point in the blood feud, the second point, the destruction of the temple, this is a fundamental event in Judaism. It is where Judaism starts. You have to understand, prior to that, the religion was not called Judaism. And if you are a Christian like me, you believe that all of the Old Testament people, that they're Christians, and that everything I just described here is a bunch of nonsensical, Talmudic gobbledygook. But that's not who we're dealing with here. We're dealing with Orthodox Jews here. And this is the theology and eschatology that they espouse and that they truly believe in their heart of hearts. And you have to understand, it's deeper than the religiosity we might understand from someone in their personal life. Because like I said before, it's an ethno-religion. This is based on ethnicity. So not only do they believe in the spiritual importance of these things, they believe in the literal, physical and historical importance of these things, literally viewing these events as part of their history, as part of their people. And now all of this leads to their relationship to Catholicism, their relationship to the church, and what it is he's talking about today. Now, why am I talking about the church? What does the church have to do with all this? Well, clearly there's this concept of transference. There's a very clear Kabbalic concept that really the story of history is kind of like a repeating story, that the story of Jacob and Esau is this eternal story that keeps going on, that Jacob and Esau are always going to find a way to war with one another, that all the biblical figures who war with one another, they're going to find a way to war with one another, and their descendants will do the same, and that basically they can change their name and they can change what their face looks like, but in the end, it's still the same thing. It's still the same soul, what's called in Kabbalah nefesh, the spirit, the soul. So Rome, big enemy, they destroy the temple. They are the descendants of Esau. We get that. Here's the thing, though. The Roman Empire, you go to Italy, it's Italy. If I go to England, it's England. It's not Britannia. It's not Roman anymore. There's no Roman soldiers running around. Caesar's been gone for a very long time and is largely remembered in these regions as a salad dressing. So what does it matter if they have beef with Rome? Rome isn't around. Except, again, this is the idea of transference. They believe that this inheritance, this promise, this whatever, this identity travels on forward into its next iteration. And that is what happened here with Esau and with Rome. We know from history what happened to Rome, what central and very important event happened to Rome that would continue it on forward into the rest of the world. Simple. The Christianization of the Roman Empire. The seat of the Vatican, the Catholic Church, the largest church in the world, is in Rome. And it's very clear that the Kabbalic view of Christianity is that of it being Roman. And it was all the monarchies of Europe that, expelled them, persecuted them, all this stuff. They view Christianity, the Catholic Church, as a continuation of Rome. Something that, let me note, so does the Catholic Church. And so does any church. If you are a apostolic Christian, whether Catholic or Orthodox, you do believe that the seat of the Pope is the seat of Rome. And so historically, there has been this profound hatred by them against the Catholic Church specifically because they see that as Esau as Rome, as their mortal enemy that they wish to get rid of. And let's make it very clear, they view religion as an ethnic thing. It's not a personal choice. It's an ethnic thing. Like, so I, by virtue of being, an Anglo, even though England is an Anglican nation, and even though I myself am an Orthodox Christian, in their view of the world, I am Catholic. I am a Roman, because Rome controlled that whole region, and all of our monarchy structures and whatever of Europe were based upon that structure, and therefore we've just inherited the same story here, okay? And this is why they profoundly dislike Europe so much. It's why they profoundly dislike Western society so much, is because Western society is built upon Rome and Christianity, something that they see as completely intertwined. And yet, much like Jacob, they have had to rely on Esau, on Rome, on Europe. They've had to, because Rome is stronger. Western society, modern Rome, America, whatever, basically just Western society. I think we can all agree that Europe kind of extends into America, at least in this conception of the world, that they've had to rely on it, just as Jacob had to rely on Esau, because Esau was the strong hunter who could protect them and feed them. It's the same situation here. And yet, just like in the Bible, they are attempting to trick Esau out of his birthright, out of his power. And that leads us to the grand finale of what they want out of Eretz Yisrael, out of the land of Israel and this greater Israel project. They want something a lot bigger than borders and bigger than wealth, bigger than guns and bombs. They want the sheer concept of power. I've said it before that a greater Israel will not look like an actual border expansion of the state of Israel, because they won't need to do as such. None of them actually have an interest in living in, Lebanon or whatever. The interest is in control, because they understand, and he said it there in the video, you can see that the region that they are situated in is important in terms of shipping, global commerce, and sort of the world island, if you will. And historically, it was the crossroads of civilizations and major powers, which, as we are entering this new political era, it's very clear that the multipolar world, as has been described by some political scientists, is going to be a world of greater powers. And if it's a world of greater powers, there's no better place to be than in the middle of all of those greater powers, and to possess a large amount of control, if not complete autonomy, over movement, resources, and defense. This is kind of the standard building blocks to a rich and prosperous society. This is the Kabbalic view. Someone like a Ben-Gvir, someone like a Yishai Fleisher, any of these people, they believe that is the promise, that this new iteration of the promise, this new iteration of God's promise to Abraham, which they believe that they literally stole from us, that they literally stole using Looney Tunes-esque tricks. This is the modern interpretation of it. This is the modern iteration of it. And so they have every single right in the world to grasp it by any means necessary. And this is why, more than anything, they have been so egregious during this war. It's also why censorship have been peeled back so much, because they've basically gone full mask off. A clip like this would have been sucked into oblivion immediately after being said, and the guy would have been condemned by his contemporaries as giving the game away. But in the modern day, they're not. And simply put, it's because they don't care anymore. It's because they understand if they can achieve hegemony over the region, if they can achieve complete control of the Middle East, whether it be through literally expanding their borders or through expanding via soft power, so getting rid of Iran, getting rid of their competitors, and taking over the region that way, they will have complete sovereignty. They will become a superpower. And let me know what superpower means. Superpower, many think, means just like a big country. That's not the case. Canada's bigger than the United States, and they're not a superpower. All a superpower really means is you're unable to be sanctioned. That's really what superpower means. So you can't sanction the United States because everyone wants to do business with us. And if you attempted to utilize an army to sanction us, we'd blow you up. That's why we're a superpower. It's also why China is a superpower. You can't embargo China. They make everyone's stuff. And if you tried, their navy would blow you up. That is why China is a superpower. And so Israel wants to be a superpower because the things that they want to do, that they'll have to do in order to achieve their biblical promises, in order to do all this other crazy stuff that I outlined in several videos about the Kabbalah and about the Talmud and about all these things, they're going to have to do like a lot of really heinous shit. Like, just point blank. Like, they're gonna have to do a lot of very condemnable, very heinous shit that is going to make them very unpopular with literally everyone in the world. Like, need I remind you, if they want to rebuild the temple, they have to destroy the third holiest site of the second largest religion in the world, encompassing nearly 2 billion people. They're gonna have to bulldoze it. Like, and just destroy it. That's like, you understand, it's not gonna win them a lot of points with the entirety of the Muslim world. And so they can't do that right now, obviously, because they are dependent upon everybody not consensually and consistently saying, okay, we are not going to work with Israel anymore. We are going to blockade off Israel. We are going to basically box out Israel and consider them a pariah state, a la North Korea. They depend on us not doing that. However, if they became the power hegemon in the Middle East, where everything goes through and basically all of modern oil production is done, because Venezuela's not really in the picture, at least not yet, I'm getting ahead of myself. That's a whole other fucking video. If they become that power hegemon, they will become unsanctionable. Well, we won't be able to condemn them because we'll have to do business with them. Because if we say, hey, it's fucked up that you just did that, it's fucked up that you just, bulldozed this really important religious site, we're going to sanction you. What'll they say? Okay, no more oil. Yeah, like no more oil. No more trade for you. Sorry. If you try to bring a trade ship to the Mediterranean, we're going to blow it up. And like it would bankrupt any country that attempted to do that. And so this is why they are pursuing this war relentlessly, because if they can pull it off, they get everything they want. They break the golden handcuffs, a concept I've explained before, and I don't want to re-explain, but if you want to know more about the golden handcuffs dynamic, please watch that video on it. Basically, they decouple themselves from the United States and they become this independent superpower that can do literally whatever it wants at any time. And so they receive the inheritance, the power of the world, the ability to rule the world. And this is what he's saying. Because you have to understand, in their theology, they believe that it is their birthright to rule the world. It is their birthright to control the world, and that they have a responsibility in the eyes of their God to repair the world, tikkun olam, something I've explained before, that they believe that basically like we can't be trusted to run our nations, that they need to be in charge because they have the inheritance, they have the promise. And if they can pull off these military moves, well, it will only further strengthen their most fanatical and put them in charge, as they are already coalescing around power in the state of Israel. And so really all of this is to say is that time is a flat circle, and that while history doesn't repeat itself, it often rhymes. And this is a central concept in Kabbalah. This is a central concept in the eschatology and theology of these people. And while this is not the mainstream belief of the average, Jewish person you'd meet in America, this is the belief of people in power. Need I remind you, our special envoy for peace in the Middle East is Jared Kushner, a Chabad Orthodox Jew. So like this is who are the power players here. And so when Yishai Fleisher says something, the guy who works for Ben Gvir, you should probably fucking listen. He's saying something important. Folks, this is going to do it for us today on this episode of The Narrative. I hope that you enjoyed. Be sure to follow, like, subscribe, hit the bell, get notified. I mean, come on, we do this every episode. Be sure again to check out the second channel. I've been posting there daily, lots of fun stream clips. So it's just clips from my stream. A bunch of you joined the stream last night, which I really appreciate. If you'd like to see more of the streams this weekend, Saturday, Sunday, I always stream. Be sure to stop in. I stream here on YouTube and on Kick. We start the stream on YouTube, and then halfway through I cut it off and we go just to Kick, because then on Kick I can be a little more unfiltered with you guys and kind of talk more, I can talk freely, I can be sort of uncensored. So if you want to see that, which I absolutely recommend, people last night were having a field day with it. They thought it was so funny. Be sure to join, be sure to follow. And furthermore, seeing someone like an Anna Kasparian speak so positively about a Nick Fuentes and sort of defend his position there, it really bolsters the point about coalition politics that I believe so deeply in. And this is why I'm so excited to announce at the end of this video that I will be speaking at America First United. Yes, I, your friend, Will Sexton, will be speaking at America First United. May 2nd on live stream. You absolutely should watch. I will be giving a speech to America First United, which you absolutely should follow them and check out what they do. You already know all the creators within it. It is a bipartisan movement and organization that is spawning around decoupling the United States from Israeli money, control, all that. I absolutely recommend that you check it out and that you check out the live stream. And at the very least, come check out my speech. I think it'll be pretty good. I like to think I'm fairly well spoken. So with all that being said, be sure to give them a follow and be sure to follow me everywhere. Like I said, folks, as I always say, God bless you and God bless America. Stay safe out there, Esau.